So
All right. Well, we're going to do continue with, we're going through the Silman book. We just decided, we have other studies too, but we're just less prep time for Spencer. He was busy today. So we're just going to dive right in. Is it part 3?
seems like it, yes.
All right. Awesome.
Part 3.
Silman Endgame studies. Hellish Endgame, says Warnacki.
Right. So part 3, this will be for people rated about 1200 to 1400. We'll be looking at like king and pawn and stuff.
It's blurry again?
Oh, it's a little blurry.
No, it looks fine to me.
It's like a little bit blurry.
I don't even see the blurry.
A little blurry, yeah.
Really?
Barely blur. Yeah, I would say so.
We could do the previous trick we did, but I don't think it looks blurry.
It does.
It seems to like sometimes. Oh, see, Scottish Demon Goat says it's not blurry. But
What
anyway.
Does he know? He's probably drunk again. Drunk again, I see.
So you're following a ton of chess channels, Lucifer? Well, I don't know
That's
how
cool.
good you were as a child, but this is a good channel to follow.
So he says, I remember going to my first tournament when I was 12.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. Watched other people in the under 1600 section and I was amazed at how good they were. My view of 12 to 1400 players being demigods was not out of line. Well, that's okay. That's one way of looking at it. Let's see what else. Do you say anything not stupid? Reading this section, you're probably a Class D player. You've got to break into the 1200 club. A lot of talent.
We do a lot of study games, sarcastic guillotine, but not today, but yeah.
I believe it's pronounced guillotine.
Guillotine.
I don't know.
I don't know. It might be one of those words that has multiple ways.
That's true.
I've heard both.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's
that could be true.
not just one way to say words.
Well, the word words, there is only one way. So.
Okay, I'll look at that later. I don't know what that is.
All right, so anyways, he talks about opposition and stuff. Who cares? Beyond basic opposition. In part 2, we learned all about basic opposition. We talked about it last time, if you were here. The battle, the kings are only one square apart. This begs an obvious question. Does opposition exist if the kings are more than one square away from each other? This is something that you want to know about.
Distant opposition.
Yes. The answer is a resounding yes. In fact, opposition exists from a distance on diagonals, and even if the kings don't seem to connect at all? What?
That's right, C.L. Smith. Oh, you never played over the board, Scottish Demon Goat?
Is that true?
Yeah, I love playing over the board.
Yeah, that is more fun.
I'm sure that I've played more over the board than anybody, including you. Have you done over 200 tournaments? Played over 200 tournaments?
Yeah.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe you have me beat then.
You kidding me?
Well, you took some years off, so I wasn't
That's
sure.
true. Well, maybe not then. I don't know. But I mean, I've played a ton of like over the board blitz.
Yeah.
You know, and stuff. I've played in a lot of blitz tournaments too.
Mm-hmm.
And I played in a lot of blitz tournaments before there was a USCF blitz rating.
Mm.
But you know, every USCF blitz rated game that I've played, I've won.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like 14-0.
Cool.
And a lot of my opponents were higher rated too.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anyways, distant opposition is similar to basic opposition, only in extended form. Rule: whoever moves within an odd number of squares between the kings does not have opposition.
Wait, say it again, and then I got to talk to somebody real quick in the chat.
Whoever moves with an odd number of squares between the kings does not have the opposition.
Odd number of squares between.
Like, let's say 1.
Mm-hmm.
Then if it's your move, the opponent has the opposition, is what he's saying.
Oh, if there's one square set.
Right, any odd number of squares.
Oh,
so
okay.
3, 5.
Okay, yes.
9.
That's right, Dr. Chess RX. I wanted to say real quick. You're correct that the second tournament I ever played in was yours. I think the Kogan. I think the Boris Kogan might be my second one, maybe.
In diagram 55, that's this position, there's an even number of squares between the kings. Looks like 6. Because 8 and then minus 2. So it's white to move. So if white plays king d2, there's an odd number of squares. So and it's black to move, so white has the opposition. In fact, he even says that like white has the opposition here, because white can like make opposition where it's black's turn. That's what his point is. And this also holds true for diagonal connections. It's my kind of connection. That and that, for example. In such opposition battles, you want to have an odd number of squares between the kings with the other guy to move. Right. So like in this position, whoever's move it is, because there's an odd number of squares, 5, come on, then whoever's move it is, the other side has the opposition. So if it's black's turn, then white's happy about that. Because you usually want to have opposition, like in an endgame.
Right.
Usually. You're usually not like, oh no, like I have opposition. But this is more for like, jargon. So you understand when people say I have opposition, you have opposition, we all have opposition, what it means. And diagram 56 shows, well, he actually has another example, more kings on the board. Can I put, oh yeah, I can.
Wow.
Yeah, this is how he, this is the diagram, except it's X's instead of red.
Yeah.
Okay. In diagram 56, that's this position, shows both the immediate and distant forms of diagonal opposition. Whoever moves does not have the opposition. It can be seen that it is not difficult to determine who has the opposition when the kings connect on a rank file or diagonal. But what if they fail to connect altogether? Does one have to get out a pocket calculator and solve prolonged mathematical formulas? Not at all. Let's look at what he's talking about. Come on, get rid of... Oh, there we go. It's like, how do I get rid of all that? There and here. This is what he's talking about. So they're not connected on the diagonal or a rank or a file. So this is a little tougher.
Right.
In this type of situation, the rule is to make a square or rectangle in which each corner is the same color with the other guy to move. This type of situation. I did read that correctly for the record.
Yeah. Square in each corner. And actually, Fraudwith said boxes before you even read it.
Oh, yeah?
So he seems to know what's going on. He says, so King A2. Scottish Demon Goat says, what?
Oh, here's what he's... Yes. So King A2, so this is a box where all the corners are the same color square. They're all white. Right?
Okay, but the king wasn't there.
Okay, so it's white's turn. White goes there.
Oh, so...
Now it is there.
Okay.
So white plays King A2. And we get a clear picture of what we're after in diagram 58, which is this position, but with the arrows like I was doing.
Okay. So you're saying that's the goal, is to get a
Each
box.
corner is the same color. Okay. Right.
All right.
The diagram shows the connecting points A2, A8, E8, E2. Note how each corner of this rectangle has the same colored square. In this case, a white square.
Hey, Chad Dad.
After King A2, white has the opposition. That's what he's saying. White has the opposition here.
All right. Yeah, that is... You could just have to know this.
Right, I didn't know this.
Hey, so, we might play at the end, Chad Dad.
Yeah. So, let's... here's proof. King F8. King B2. Same thing. Now it's like that, right?
I've never even heard this before.
King E8. King C2. Same deal. Right now it's all white squares. King F8. King. He also gives other variations, but it's going to be the same. Eventually we're going to get into actual opposition. And we can actually see that happening now. Like if he goes here and here, that's distant opposition.
Right, okay.
So you can try this. Well, then we'll do the same thing. Right? Yeah, it's still got it going. See, you don't want to go here because then he goes here and now black's got the opposition because it's
Right.
white's turn.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is cool to know. You sent a friend request in preparation. Okay, I'll check that.
Now black can't do anything to avoid normal opposition that we've already seen.
Mm-hmm.
Like if black goes here, we got distant opposition on the same, what's that called, file.
Mm-hmm.
Or here we got diagonal opposition on the diagonal. Or here it's normal opposition, or there.
George Hornsby has a question. He says, and the shortest number of moves to the other king is an odd number. Is that relevant? Shortest number.
That's an even number. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, he said that a while back.
Well, yeah, but it's always been an even
Right,
number, right?
But, well,
Maybe
I
not. I don't
know.
Oh, no, yeah, see. Well, okay, but after king a2, this is what we're talking about. Now it is an even number.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, it should be an even number in that case. Unless he means the squares between them is an odd number.
Well,
That might be what he
we've
meant.
been counting the squares between us.
Yeah.
So that would be.
It's like the chemicals between us. Actually, I like this. That's better. Yeah, that's prettier. That it's in a straight line. Oh, Indo Queen is now hosting. Nice.
Yay! Thank you,
Thanks,
Indo
Indo.
Queen.
Yeah, so that is similar to what we talked about earlier, how there's an odd number of squares between them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yes. So even I learned a thing. Wow.
Yay!
Who would have thought? Of all the things I don't know, this is one of them. All right, so now let's talk about king and pawn endgames instead of king versus king and no pawns.
Right.
So king and pawn versus lone king, or the stronger side's king is in front of its pawn. We've seen that the defender can usually draw if the defending king is in front of the enemy pawn. We saw that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
However, the stronger side's winning chances go way up if he manages to place his king in front of his pawn. When this happens, 3 questions will decide the issue. 1. Is the pawn a rook pawn? As we already learned before, a rook pawn is much more difficult to win with. 2. Is the stronger side's king 1 square or 2 squares in front of its pawn? And 3. Who possesses the opposition? Alright, another rook pawn, another draw. So let's see how it's still a draw with the rook pawn, as you might imagine.
Now, C.L. Smith has something he's saying.
Yes.
The number of squares between them can be odd without having the opposition, though. Kings have to be on the same color square.
If the kings are on the same color square, the number of squares between them is odd. Always. How could it not be? Right? So what are you talking about? Unless that's what you were saying. I don't know. Hard to know. Alright, so unless the defending king is on vacation elsewhere on the board, elsewhere, that's where Khajiits live, then the presence of the rook pawn will make the game a draw. Useful advice: if you're trying to win and you can enter a pawn up endgame where you have a rook pawn, be careful. The words rook pawn and draw seem to be bound at the hip.
Mm-hmm.
If the kings are on d8 and c2, those are not the same color square. But they do have the odd number of, I get what you're saying. You're saying the odd number of squares doesn't matter as much as, well, both, if it's both situations, then it is opposition, right? If it's an odd number of squares and the kings are on the same color square.
Okay, yeah, that's actually a good observation.
I see what you mean.
Thank you,
there.
C.L. Smith. Took us a minute
I get
to
what you're
get there.
saying.
That is actually a good observation. Mm-hmm.
Right, the odd number alone aren't enough. That's correct.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. No, that was a good point.
So this would obviously be a win if it was not a rook pawn. We move everything over to the left, to the left, to the left. Then even Beyonce would win that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, probably not. For example, we'll just play it out just for posterity's sake, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Black will always do that. And yeah, the problem is you can't go to the I file, so you can't shepherd your pawn forward.
Yeah.
Doesn't even matter about opposition or anything. Stalemate. You can't even do my trick of trying to like let them take the pawn, you know? It doesn't even work.
No.
All right, what about a non-rook pawn? This example here. One square in front. Is it enough? When the stronger side gets his king on the 3rd, 4th, or 5th rank directly in front of his pawn, the only question that matters is who owns the opposition. Right? If the defender has it, the game is a draw. That is to say, if it's white's turn here, black has opposition, right? Therefore, the game is a draw.
Right.
But if white has opposition, that is to say it's black's turn, then white's going to win. So this is a great example of mutual zugzwang. Whoever's turn it is wants the other person to move.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever moves fails to achieve his goal, is what he says here. In this diagram, whoever has the move fails to achieve his goal, since that would give the opponent the opposition. Let's see what happens if it's white's turn, which means that black has opposition. Did I make? Yeah, I made it white to play. Remember, when the stronger side gets his king on the 3rd, 4th, or 5th rank directly in front of his pawn, the only question that matters is who has opposition. Yeah, it changes on the 6th rank for the record. That's why he keeps stipulating the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rank. All right, king e3. Obviously, moving the king backwards won't help. Then we'll keep the opposition, right?
Mm-hmm.
He likes to go back and forth just to prove his point. Like that. And white can't make any progress at all. If white moves the pawn, then we've already seen this. It was earlier we saw this, you know, in part 2 probably, I assume. Okay, but now let's say it's black's turn, right? If black moves first from this diagram, though, things are very, very different. So the king will go to e5. But now we can go king c4. Yes. Retaining opposition with king e3, you can do that, but you know he'll go back. You'll just have to go back. Then you'll do it again. So that's not going to help. But okay, king c4 is the winning play. Stepping forward. Stepping forward is the most important thing with opposition taking a back seat to this. Why? Because white can only win if he gains control of the queening square. You have to control that square in order to win. So you have to step forward. He's right. But he also has to make sure that his pawn is safe. You can't let the guy take your pawn. You can't go up here and then he goes and takes it. That's not going to help.
Right.
Right.
Scottish Demon Goat says, "Me and Lucifer getting along. Who would guess it?"
This takes us, move as far forward with your king as possible while always making sure that your pawn is safe. King d6. So he gives another option here, king e4. That's aggressive, hoping for king c5 and then here, draw. But we can play d4. d3 also wins for the record. When black's king can't get back in front of the pawn, if black could go here, draw. But he can't. We're just going to make sure that we step up. For example, king f5, king d5. Nice. Moving forward, saving the pawn, opposition. Can't ask for much more than that, can you? Nice. We already got control of the queening square. And we didn't lose our pawn. So now we know we're going to win. Etc. I don't know if this is the variation, but you know. So yeah, king e4 won't work. We can play d4 and get it done. So let's say he tries king d6. Opposition. Nice. A very important move. White was not able to advance his king safely. You know, if you go here, you're going to lose your pawn. You can't get back to defend the pawn. So you have to take opposition now. Moving forward, opposition, Papa John's. Yes.
Hey, Bishop
Oh,
takes.
yeah, you are a little bit late. But that's all right.
You are opposed to this in-game course. Well, I don't know what to tell you. I'm opposed to a lot of things in life.
Right. Not everything's just for you. Right. Right. I remember when Inarchev did that. Inarchev made an illegal move, keeping his king in check. Magnus just assumed that Inarchev got out of check. So Magnus did something else. And then
Oh.
Inarchev's that's illegal because I was in check, so I win.
Oh, yeah, I
I'm
remember. I
Inarchev.
did hear about that. Now, look, this isn't looking good.
Oh
We
yeah, the
didn't lose
stream
the
dropped a
stream.
little bit. I hope we didn't lose it.
But look, I still have internet here. I forgot to hardwire us today.
Bum bum bum.
But I think we're okay. Sometimes.
All right, sometimes that just freezes anyway.
Let me just do a little refresh. We've already seen all
Stream's
this
fine, they
chat.
said. Okay,
Okay.
good.
Yeah, I forgot to plug the Ethernet cable in.
Hopefully it'll stay steady for us.
I could get up and do it. I think we're fine with the wireless breaker. Why is this not refreshing?
Not fresh enough.
But Chad Dad says you're a fine gentleman.
Close. You don't know me very well, I guess. King e6.
Oh, look, it didn't refresh.
Well,
But the
everybody
stream's
says
fine?
it's fine.
Okay.
I hope
Right.
it's true.
I hope it's true. Hey, somebody type something
Something.
in the chat. Anything to give us hope. What?
It's true. Something. It's fine. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. The thing that we use to watch the stream happens to not be working, but I guess that's
Yeah.
not related.
All right, that's pretty strange. Okay, well, I'm not going to get up right now to do the Ethernet
Right.
cable.
Continuing to trudge down the board.
We can see the chat over here too.
Right. King e5. Still hoping for king c6. King d4 would be a draw. But we can check. Now don't go checking, because then that's a draw. We saw that before, so keep that opposition. Yes, keep that opposition. Let's see, what's the next thing? King e7. Now this is just winning. We get opposition. They step to the side. And so on. Mainly, etc.
Let me just look over. Of course, I can't leave it alone. I think I solved the issue. Oh, no, I didn't.
King d7. So we can still play king d5 and get that opposition. White's pawn is safe, so he regains opposition. Don't be going d4 a little early for that. Now black has the opposition. And this is actually like the draw we saw earlier when it was white to play.
Yeah, and there's a question here. Is the target to get with the king before the pawn at the 6th rank?
He's asking to get the king to the 6th rank before the pawn.
Oh.
He just worded it kind of funny,
Okay.
I think. Yeah, that's a goal. If you have your king in front of your pawn on the 6th rank, that will always win, which I think he's going to say that later. But yes, that is a good goal to have. Isn't king c7 after king e7 easier? You mean here? King e7. Is it king c7? No, because they'll go here and then you have to go back. So, and then you'd go here. So king d5. King e6. Keep getting that king up. King d8, one of the many hopeless moves. You could try this, but we could still get d4 going. And then we already saw this. Again, the other guy would want to go here and then repeat. But yeah, would be a win. And then if you try to get opposition, we'll just go there. And if you try to go here, then we will get opposition. So it doesn't matter too much at that point. Let's see. So king d8.
Makes sense.
Opposition. King e8. But yeah, once we get our king on the 6th rank, we know it's a win. King on the 6th rank in front of the pawn. Etc. Mainly etc. Always repeat, then always retweet.
That's wrong with the thing. That's annoying. Oh, I can hear the chat over there.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe restart the computer.
Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah, that should work.
I was going to try to do it, but I couldn't get the... I gave up on it.
So, in summation, when the white king, the stronger king, is one square in front of the pawn, it depends whose turn it is, whether it's a win or not. And remember, this is only in the case of if it's on the third, fourth, or fifth rank. On the sixth rank, it's always a win in this scenario. Like if you move this up here, even if it's white's turn, that's a win. With the pawn only once, or the king only one square in front of the pawn.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of the sideways moving pawns variant of chess? I've never played it or heard of it, but I don't like chess variants because
Yeah,
I'm
he's
a curmudgeon.
hates them. No, what is it? Does it have a name, that variant? I've never even heard of that one.
Let's look at this. A non-rook pawn where we're two squares in front. That's always winning for the stronger side, as you might imagine, because you'd rather it be the opponent's turn usually, as we've seen when it comes to opposition. So the worst case scenario is it's white's turn. But then we could just go here, and we already know that's a win from what we just looked at.
Yeah.
So if we're two squares in front of the pawn, we're always winning. And in fact, that's a Finegold rule. If it's a king and pawn endgame and we're two squares in front of the pawn, the only way to draw is to take the pawn. You have to play king takes pawn. It's like if your king's here, then draw. But if your king cannot take the pawn, you lose 100%. And that's true. When the stronger side king managed to get two squares in front of the pawn, unless it's a rook pawn, the game is always a win, and an easy one at that. White wins no matter whose turn it is. Yes. If it was black to move, white would have the opposition, but if it's white's turn, white plays d3. This is all the stuff I just said. Suddenly it's black's turn, white has opposition, and we only have to follow the previous example to win, so we don't need to play through it again. King needs to be two squares to guarantee opposition. The king doesn't have to be anywhere in relation to the pawn to guarantee opposition, but if the king is two squares in front of the pawn, then you can always waste a move, right? So you are guaranteed opposition, I guess. Yeah, that's a way of looking at it, I suppose. All right, this next section is called Fox in the Chicken Coop.
Okay, it's got a fancy name. Hang on.
All right, I love that.
While this stuff is opening. Let me just try one more time.
Do.
Fox in the chicken coop. Hang on. Don't get started. Twitch. Let's see if this fixed the situation. Yay, it did.
So this is a king and pawn endgame. It's a normal king and pawn endgame, but we've added extra pawns on the king side here, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we just looked at this stuff earlier, where it was just this,
Right.
just these guys. So now we can imagine that there are just extra pawns going on, but they're locked together and can't move. How does the stronger side go about winning this kind of very common endgame? The fox in the chicken coop, is what he says. White wins by walk. White wins in a walk. White wins in a walk by pushing the black king back and then abandoning it for the unguarded chickens on the other side of the board. I like how he puts it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you step up here, then we don't even need the other pawns to win.
Right.
So he's got to go back. So like normally that would be a draw with just these three guys on the board, but we can just go ahead and go win on the other side of the board. Here and then there.
Mm-hmm.
White abandons the B pawn, secure in the knowledge that while black is busy dealing with it, white will capture all of black's pieces on the king's or pawns on the king side. You could also play like check and then here, but that doesn't make sense. Why not make him spend extra time to go take your pawn?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we got
Yay.
202 bits from Jay Cheatham.
Yay! Thank you, Jay Cheatham.
Yeah, it is pretty instructional.
Thank you.
Trying our best. Here, there. And yeah, I think that anybody could win this. It's mindlessly easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't even need to use this pawn, right? You could just win like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's look at the next example. The deep freeze.
Yeah, I love all these names. So
Right.
that other one was Fox in the Chicken Coop,
Yeah.
and this one's the deep freeze.
Right. It's like in Futurama when he was frozen in the carbonite.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know. I'll have to read it to see if it's like that. In king and pawn endgames, it's very important to avoid having your pawn majority devalued by allowing a smaller force to freeze the larger one in its tracks. So all sorts of interesting things are going on in this impossible diagram since there's no kings. For example, black to move could create a passed pawn with b5. Right?
Mm-hmm.
While white to move could prepare the creation with h4, h5. However, the possibility to devalue the opponent's respective majorities is also present. White to play could move a5, and because of en passant, your two pawns are stuck behind my one pawn.
Mm-hmm.
So it's your pawn majority, which you were going to use to make a passed pawn, is worthless at that point. And that is a common thing that you'll see in the endgame, definitely. Yeah.
I see Wiener. What?
That's from Futurama.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Got a
like,
pizza delivery
if
for
I had to say,
Icy Wiener.
you can't trick me. I know those tricks, Froggy.
Now, black to play, on the other hand, has the same idea. They could play g5, whereas these two pawns aren't able to move without sacrificing themselves and allowing the black pawn to queen as well. So that's what he's talking about in this example. So now let's look at an example with kings on the board, because it'll be a legal position then.
Yeah, definitely.
Like this. That. Here. And there. Legal moves only. White to move. Come on. Okay. So black has a passed pawn. White's ability to create one of his own on the king side ensures that the game will be drawn. So how should white go about that? What do you think?
So you're saying it should be a theoretical draw?
Yeah, well, it's
If
white
black-
to play. What would you do?
All right.
The chat's getting it. They're learning about it.
No, H4.
H4, exactly.
Mhm.
That's the right idea. You got to create a passed pawn with your 2 against 1.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do that by playing H5. But you got to play H4, G4, H5. If you play G4 first, black would play.
G5.
Yes, and then it's the freeze, the deep freeze.
Oh, okay.
It's your turn to feel the chill. That's the Futurama I was referencing. But yeah, H4 is the way to go. H4, definitely. And in fact, black has to be careful here. If black goes king b6, just sort of holding tight, it's actually going to lose. Because you're outside the square.
Mm-hmm.
So black is not going to be able to catch the pawn with the king. And white wins. So after h4, black actually should go here. Where we still have to make a passed pawn. But then everybody gets took. Not necessarily in that move order, but yeah. But yeah, g4, g5, that's the blunder. And then it would be a classic chicken coop situation that we've just seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. I feel certain I've
And
been
wins.
chicken cooped.
Yeah, cooped up. It's also an option opponent know that I know theory and we never play it and just agree to a draw. Well, I guess, but I never trust my opponent. I never trust my opponent to, to know something. Why not play it out?
Yeah.
It's got to be like very drawish for me to agree to a draw. Let me tell you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've beat many a high-rated player because they didn't know how to play the end game. I didn't either, but
Right. You
I
can always make mistakes.
figured it out and I beat them. So yeah, I don't ever do any of that.
Right.
I'm always trying to win.
All right, we can keep going now if you wanted.
Yeah, definitely.
Minor piece versus lone pawn. In positions where a minor piece, a bishop or a knight, faces a lone pawn, any winning chances that might exist lie with the pawn. Obviously, because you can't mate with just a minor piece. Which is what he says. So can the bishop or knight stop the pawn from reaching its final destination? That's the only question. If it can, then it's a draw. If not, then it'll be queen against minor piece, which we already learned in part 1 is a win. So bishop versus lone pawn. This tends to be ridiculously easy to draw since the bishop can stop the pawn's march from a distance, which it can usually do without even help from its king. Here's a pretty easy example.
What if it was Magnus Carlsen offering you a draw?
No draw. I don't accept draws.
Yeah, I don't know.
A bishop can stop a pawn even from a long distance. If it was black to move here, he'd win by queening. When the resulting queen and bishop, we already looked at that actually, I think. But obviously, if it's white's turn, we just play bishop f6. And we got no problems whatsoever. Oh, a subscription. Thanks,
Yay.
CD Lautremont.
Thank you, CD Lautremont.
Nice. Yeah. And then he actually gives some variation here, even though it's over. So with the bishop, it's pretty easy to understand. A knight, it's a little bit trickier. So let's look at a knight. Put the king there. This king will go here. The knight will be here. And a pawn about to queen. They'll never tell me whose turn it is. Well, let's make it black's turn. All right, the knight doesn't have a long diagonal power like the bishop, but it can usually stop an enemy pawn even without the help of its king if it's close enough, and can maintain control over the square in front of the pawn. Right, in this case, it's c2. In this diagram, it's a draw no matter whose turn it is. But let's say it's white's turn first. Knight b4 check. That'll protect c2. King c4, knight c2. King b3, knight b4. I know he's playing ring around the rosy, right? Here, then we could just do anything, right? We're controlling the square, so we're good to go. Just bring the king up. And it's not like black can make any progress here. It just goes like this, and we'll take it. Big draw. Now let's pretend that it's black to play. Still a draw. Well, here's a rule. If the knight can safely land on or keep connected to the square or squares, if the pawn isn't on the 7th rank, in front of the pawn, the game will be drawn. A rook pawn being an exception. Actually, a rook pawn is tougher for the knight. That's a well-known bit of chess information there. A knight has a lot of problems with a rook pawn.
Yeah.
So here, if it's black to play, c2 is not going to work because we can just fork it and take it. So let's try king c4. That's a little trickier. Yeah. So now, this is tough. This I might think this is a win, right? Because he's about to queen, and we can't easily stop him. So we're going to need to use some technique here. Knight a5 check. Knight e5 also works. Just check him. King b4. If king b5, we'll get to go here, and then we're gonna protect that square, and your king can't kick me away. So king b4. Now you can't go here, right? But then we could just go back. Again, if you step up to try to queen, we're connected to the square. So we got you there. That'll be a draw. So let's play king c5. Right? Now you can't go and try to stop my pawn yet. Knight a5 again. Probably knight e5 also works. Almost 100% sure that's true. But now we can get to c1. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go to b3 to c1. If you play king back to b4, we'll go back to c6 because we were already there. We already had that position. Actually, I played king c4. Yeah, now we have no reason to move our knight unless it's attacked. So we can just make a random move. Check. Well, we've already seen this scenario. The king can't kick the knight away. Black won't be able to make any progress and must sooner or later agree to a draw. Could just do it right now at this point. If the knight can take control of any square in front of the pawn, the game is a draw. That is important to understand. Let's see if there's any questions. Doesn't seem like it. Knight and bishop against only king is a theoretical win, but I can't make it even if I practice. Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough one. You're going to have to learn how to do it. And he said in this book he's not going to teach us. Remember?
But you're going to teach us.
Am I?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, good.
At the end.
All right, I will.
It's like a more advanced. Yeah, we can add in. This is just a spine.
Right.
We can add in all sorts of things that we feel like should be added in. That would be fun.
Certainly.
It seems hard.
It's pretty tough. But it is, yeah, it's pretty rare that you ever get it. Although I've gotten it twice, like I've mentioned multiple times.
Yeah.
All right, so this one is pretty tough, huh?
Man, the dance studio is really loud tonight.
Right.
And we have a dance studio right next to the chess center.
As mentioned earlier, rook pawns pose a problem for the knight. It doesn't enjoy the support of the king. Because knights can't leap from one side of the pawn to the other, like we saw in the other examples. There's only one side to the rook pawn. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say it's white to play. Knight b5.
Mm-hmm.
Has to go here. It's the only try, right? And then knight c3. Draw. Can't stop me from doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you push me off the board physically. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's easy enough. Now let's say it's black to play. Gotta change it there. Yeah, black to play. Now that's a little bit tougher, right?
Mm-hmm.
A2 X clan. So pretty clear plan. We're going to move our king and then queen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Other moves actually don't win. This is the only winning move. Okay, king A2, ridiculous. Nobody would consider that, right? That wouldn't make any sense at all. Let's say king B2. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But we can play knight C4 check, fork.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's not going to make sense. King B1. That looks like that could win, right? Could win. Let's go here. You can't immediately get me. But there is a 2-move fork. We poke it. Only reasonable move is this. And then we fork it.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll take that pawn. Draw. Right. Right. I got you, AB sequence. Don't worry. So the only winning move is actually A2. So here's the deal is that if you play king B5, like we saw in the other variation, king B1 would get forked. So now we'll play king B2. Game over. You can't stop me. Clearly.
Mm-hmm.
So let's try king C4. But now we could play king B1. See, sometimes we need to play king B1. Sometimes we need to play king B2. But we always play A2. That's why A2 wins. And the king moves don't win. Initially, I mean. You have to make the king move depending on which knight move they make. But the pawn move is always the same. Because that's how pawns move. I'm doing great, Poshi. How are you doing?
Hey, Poshi, how's it going?
What's funny is that king B1 is the only legal move for black. That is pretty funny. Knight A3 check. This check also, you just stop knight b3, and that's it. You're done for now. Knight a3 check is not going to help. King c1, stopping this check. If you go here, they can check you again. That probably still wins because you could at least go back.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, king c1. I like it when it's like this because then the knight can't check me for a long time. It takes 3 moves to check me. You know, like that, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And so he can just resign here, yeah. Now, white could have drawn this position if the king is a little closer. Let's try it like this. Even if it's black to move, this is a draw because our king is close enough to help, right? Well, if a2, king c1, stalemate.
Mm-hmm.
That's good enough. If king b2, it's fork down. So king b1. But yeah, now we can make him do it again. Get forked. Let's look at another different tweak here in this situation. Like this. We'll put the king here.
Yay, glad you like it, AB sequence. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, tell MG Weirdo about that.
Oh, he's still stuck around. MG Weirdo he likes us so much he stayed anyway.
Well, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
So the pawn is hanging here, black to move. Obviously, white to move is not much of a position. The pawn is hanging, but both king a2 and b2 fail to knight c4. If you play either of those king moves, knight c4 will take the pawn next turn, guaranteed.
Right.
So black has to try this if you want to try to win. All right, so now you've got 2 reasonable options, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the knight. Which one's it going to be? What do you think?
Let's see. I think knight b5 is better.
Maybe the chat can vote for it. Which
See.
knight moves it going to be? Knight b5 or knight c4? Maybe Sequence and Karen like knight b5.
Hey, Squire, how's it going?
Well, knight c4 by Lucifer. So I already got different answers. But you're going to have to calculate. Use your calculation brain.
Well, I mean, if you go knight c4, then king can't go to b2, so it has to go king b1.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's harder to stop I don't see how you can stop the pawn. I guess you could check king and then he just goes back.
Well, that sounds good. You want to draw. Make him go back.
Yeah, but it seems like knight b5. Let's see if we go knight b5.
What would black play then?
Oh, yeah, maybe that isn't right. Knight b5, yeah, king b1.
Well, knight b5,
you
king
can
b1.
check.
You fork him.
Right. Oh, no, but then if they go king b2... oh, yeah, that's a problem.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, I guess it has to be the other one.
Yeah, knight b5 loses to king b2. King
Yeah.
b1 gets forked.
Yeah, I didn't look at both.
But king b2, you can't stop me from queening.
Yeah. Darn.
Knight c4, however, only legal move is this. And then we can check. Which check is it going to be?
Let's see. If you go knight d2, check. Then after that, you can go knight b3.
Yes, exactly. You got to
Yeah.
control a1. Hey, CJ. Sorry that your soul is in pain.
Oh, hey, CJ. How's it going? Hey, Casper Vid.
Anywhere,
Tarek DC.
knight b3, exactly.
Darn, endgames are so hard.
They are pretty tough.
Why are you sad, CJ?
Scottish Demon Goat likes knight a3, but I don't know if he's joking. Probably, because then you lose. Yeah, so knight c4 is a draw there. Knight b5 does lose. Yeah, you got to be careful.
Mm-hmm.
Even in an endgame that you might have to calculate just to make sure. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah.
I always this is why, like, remember we were talking about when it's like when the queen is a knight square away, when it's king and queen against king mate, and you're like, Anna teaches that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's not the right attitude to have. Even if you know what to do, you should always be calculating and trying to figure it out, because you can mess up something that you know if you're just automatically doing it.
That's true. You get on autopilot.
Yeah, don't do that.
Depending on these
Yeah,
these
use your
rules.
brain.
That is true.
Oh my goodness.
You're sick. Aw. Well, I'm sorry about that. But I was on your stream earlier, and it seems like you've got some nice people in your life.
Yeah, I heard that you got your webcam working.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
There's a Forkton, Kentucky.
I believe it. Dang, you had to have to move the chess club there now. Now, there are some times when you can actually win with white. Let's look at an example that's terrible for black.
Okay, let's see that.
Because who would have thought?
Sir Man James says, I love these positions. I never hang my queen.
So, white to play here. What do you think?
All right, so you're saying white can win here?
Yeah.
All right, let me look, because I was so hasty last time.
In fact, this is similar to something Mark showed us a long time ago. Not too long ago, actually.
Yeah.
Well, you should be calling CJ sister, not brother, Poshi. We're here for you, sister.
Well, Poshi didn't know that.
Right.
Yeah, life is tough sometimes, CJ. I do get it. Man, I do. And then some. All right, so let's see. That didn't work, what I just thought of, because then it's a stalemate. So then if I go here, let's see.
Forkton, Kentucky, Fried Chicken Chess Club. That does sound good. I would love that.
Well, I mean, white can't win with the knight. But
White can win this position by force. White's winning.
What do you mean?
You think I'm lying to you? Or do you think the book is lying?
Well, there can actually be. Oh, that's right. I guess there can be a checkmate if they've got pawn. I forgot that. I was thinking there couldn't be. Okay, well now let me look. Now that I tuned into what you said. Okay, so there's there.
That's not true, C.L. Smith.
Okay, so probably knight d4.
You got to try to defend better with black.
Let me see, knight d4. And if they go there, then you go king c2, then they go back. Then, oh no, but then they can.
I mean, black only has 2 legal moves after any knight move that white plays, so you got to calculate both of them.
That's it there.
Guys are too lazy over there. Like, I don't want to calculate.
Right, well,
I can't calculate 2 moves. Only one.
Well, they shouldn't go a2. Whose move? I'm sorry, whose move?
White.
Okay.
White.
So if white goes knight d4, then they shouldn't go a2.
Right.
Okay,
So that's the trick. You got to make them play a2.
All right.
By not allowing king a2.
Okay, so I guess knight b4 then.
Yeah, knight b4.
But I didn't see the follow-on from that.
You can't go to a2, so they have to play a2.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, and then it's just a mate.
Main one, yeah.
Darn, I didn't see that.
Easy peasy.
It wasn't easy for me.
But it was peasy. Yeah, only one move to calculate. Right. Yeah, knight b4, then your opponent only has 1 legal move. That's easy.
I didn't see it right away.
Yes.
Wow, mate says AB sequence.
All right, that would be very unfortunate. But any other move like this, obviously, like you said, don't go here because of mate.
Mm-hmm.
They'll step out and then they'll survive.
Okay.
Scratching and surviving good times.
Yeah, I forgot about you can mate if they have a pawn, you have a knight.
Yeah,
wasn't
it
really
says
thinking.
a lone knight can only triumph over a pawn if the pawn is a rook pawn and the king is trapped in front of it. And only in certain circumstances as well. That's true. You gotta like make the pawn smother them, like we saw.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you wanna look at? We'll do one more, only one more little section here to this part.
Yeah, what time did we start? Let's see, we've been going an hour
Started
and
at
a
like
half.
5:15 or so.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, I'm happy to keep going a
5:20.
bit. Let's see. C.L. Smith says, did you already answer this? Can we still force mate after
Users
C2?
user 0. You can watch this our old streams on our YouTube channel. The Chess Club and Scholastic Center of Atlanta's YouTube channel has
Mm-hmm.
all of our old streams on it.
Are we caught up there? Are they both?
I actually think that you didn't transfer the last one.
Oh, well,
I'm pretty
it's
sure.
on video. You can see here on the Twitch channel too, and on YouTube. But they're still on video. Yeah, the video on demands are still here, and they'll get on YouTube. Yeah, I didn't know I didn't transfer. Always just shoot me a note if I didn't. 'Cause I thought I did, but I guess I didn't. Doesn't always work either.
King C2 doesn't win because I'll go here. Then you'll stalemate me. Haha.
Oh yeah.
Alright, now let's look at rook against one pawn. Unlike bishop and king, which can't mate, a rook and a king it can mate. Who would have thought? Oh wait, we learned that in part 1.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe part 2, I forgot. Alright, so let's take a look at this example. You know, it depends how far away your king is, whether you can win with king and rook. I've had king and rook against king and pawn many times in my career, actually. In fact, here's an example from a World Championship game. It was Leko against Kramnik. Leko with white here, and it's white to move. Here's a rule for you. If the enemy pawn is well on its journey towards pawn promotion, and if its king is helping, and if the rook's king is off on vacation, it'll be a draw. And that's this scenario. This pawn is pretty close to queening.
Mm-hmm.
The king is helping, and this king is too far away. So the pawn is too far advanced, and black's king is a non-participant. So white didn't have any problem saving the half point. G6. King D3. Now don't go G7, right? That's too far away.
Mm-hmm.
We'll play rook G1 and you'll lose. You can't defend it. So you need your king's help. That's important. Rook B5 check. Rook F1 check. King E6. Rook G1. King F7. Obviously, it's not going to work. I mean, either way, it's a draw. He played rook B5 check. Did Kramnik, unless they drew. I don't think they would draw here, though.
Good night, CJ. I hope you feel better
Night.
tomorrow. Sleep always helps me.
And he took. Did Kramnik. He had enough of that. If you want to keep it going, there's not much you could do.
Right. Yeah.
You can like check, and I'll move back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could take the pawn. Or you could even wait for me to queen. Right? And then check and take it.
Yeah.
Just for fun. I did that once.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Just for fun.
Smarty pants.
That's me. Okay, let's look at this one. Now this one looks pretty tough. It looks like this should be a draw too. Black to play here. Yeah. In this position, we get to see an important winning maneuver. This is actually a win. Now this is important. I've learned this. I remember learning this a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
So black to play. Well, maybe we should ask the chat and Karen. Black to play. What's the winning idea? Dang, they already got it in the chat. They're too good. Yeah, chat knows all about it.
Mm.
Close one. There's no bishop though, but close enough.
Okay, so
Oh,
black.
100 bits from L'Autrement.
I'm scared to look at the chat because
Well, then just trust me that he did that.
yeah. Yay, thank you, CD L'Autrement. I'm not going to look at the chat. So I don't know, actually. So black should be able to win this, you're saying?
Yes, black does win.
Okay, so...
Guaranteed win. Oh, CJ donated 100 bits.
Yay!
I love Spencer. Bye-bye.
Aww.
Love you too, CJ.
Thank
Bye.
you, CJ. We hope you feel better.
Yes, I admit, it's getting better.
Let's see. Darn, what don't I know?
Well, this is something that you either know it or you don't. Otherwise, it's very difficult to imagine that black wins this. I mean, it looks like the king and rook are about as bad as possible, especially the king.
Mm-hmm.
Is it true that if you can dodge a car, you can dodge a ball? I think if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. That's what I've heard. But I don't know that to be true. Once in a tournament, I drew a game with bishop, knight, and rook against 4-pawn rain. What?
I don't know this
Rain?
one. I don't know it. I just don't know.
Whoever's move it is wins. If it's white's turn, white cannot possibly win. Well, I could show you.
Yeah. You're
All
gonna
right.
have to show me this
So
one.
the idea is that you need to cut off the king with rook b4. Now, if white does nothing, you bring the king up and win. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If white goes and chases your rook, you go take it. So the only logical thing for white to do is to push the pawn, right?
Right.
So we can push it.
Yeah,
Now
I could do
we
it.
attack the pawn.
Mm-hmm.
Again, only one logical move for white.
Push it.
And then goodbye pawn.
Oh, darn.
Yeah.
That's not too bad.
All right, it's easy once you know it. And you're like, oh, obviously that
Well, I
works.
mean, I've cut off.
But you have to know it.
I've cut the king off a million times, but I didn't.
Right, you might even do it just by, habit. Exactly.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's nothing that white can do. If white doesn't push the pawn, then, like I said, you just go here and
Get
there.
the king up, yeah. Okay.
And if white just, goes here and there.
Mhm.
Or if white goes and chases the rook, then you can always go here once the king allows you to play behind the pawn. So easy like Sunday morning in that case. A pawn on the 5th rank and a king trapped on the 3rd rank by the enemy rook is always a win for the rook. One more example before we're all done. You laughing at me?
No.
I get it.
No, I was laughing at Scottish Demon
Oh, I
God.
know. I figured you weren't laughing at me. What did he say? Something funny?
He said,
He always has funny stuff to say.
a pawn rain is somehow weaker than a pawn storm or something.
Right. I was wondering when he said pawn rain, what was that?
Mhm.
When AV Sequence said that. I don't know, though. I know it's not his... English isn't his first language, so I didn't want to make fun too much. Just a little. In this next position, white wins, even though black has the move. Wow. Yeah, black to move, white still wins. Hard to believe.
Yeah, it is. I said, you said,
Because the king is close enough to the pawn to help the rook stop it. A team effort between the king and rook often allows white to fight for successful control of the queening square. So he's going to go here, obviously.
mm-hmm.
Well, I guess king d2 is similar. Or king e2, I mean. Here, there, but we're just in time. We actually do let him queen. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But we take it. That's like the famous, that's the famous joke, like, it's a bet. Like, I bet you I can queen the pawn here.
Yeah.
And then you're like, when you calculate that, you're like, no, you can't, right? And then he does it and just lets you take it. And you're like, I didn't say I'd win. I'd queen the pawn. Yeah. Although if you wanted to beat him in his own game, you would just play rook takes pawn. Because all he needs to do is queen the pawn. It doesn't matter if you win or draw. Just take it. Give me that money. So yeah, if the king and rook are helpful, or close enough, they can control the queening square. And it's game over. All right, so in summation, if the kings are connected on a file, rank, or diagonal, then you can easily ascertain whether or not you possess the opposition, distant or otherwise. The formula for distant opposition, you want an odd number of squares between the kings with the other guy to move. To create indirect opposition, you do that square with the rectangle with the same colors like we talked about.
Okay, yeah.
King and pawn endgames. Rook pawns are often an exception to normal endgame rules. They usually just draw if it's a king and pawn endgame. If in a king and pawn endgame with the stronger side's king in front of the pawn on the 3rd, 4th, or 5th rank, it depends who has opposition. You know, if you have the opposition with the stronger side, you win. If the other side has opposition, it's a draw. If it's two squares in front of the pawn, it's always a win unless it's a rook pawn. And then he talks about the chicken coop and the frozen stuff and the minor piece stuff. Yeah, okay. The end.
Mm-hmm.
So we finished parts 1 through 3 already.
Yay.